Income tax relief, higher exemption on home loans, a promise of creating jobs and reviving the economy. Has Finance Minister Arun Jaitley done enough to make this an Achhe Din budget? Hello and welcome to Budget Namo. I'm Shweta Rajpal-Kohli, and over the next 1 hour, we'll try and break down the Modi government's first budget for you. What does this budget really mean for you? Has he done enough to ensure that the economy is revived and that the budget gives you the much needed relief? Let's take a look at what we're going to really talk about on the show today. We talk about jobs, taxes, prices, stocks. How does all of that really impact you? So taxes, what has been the relief? What are the kind of savings you can see? Jobs, can you expect some kind of boost there? Prices, that is a key worry, inflation really, and stocks. So what will happen to markets here on? All of that coming on the show. We have a power-packed panel of guests with us. With me here in the studio, Mr. Vivek Mehra of the PwC, Mr. Gurcharan Das, Mr. Mukesh Bhutani, and of course an audience here with plenty of questions they want to ask. We'll also be inviting questions from viewers across the country. Joining me are reporters from across the country with several guests who have questions. We've got Alok Pandey joining us from Patna and Siddharth Ranjan Das also joining us from Bhopal. Let me kickstart the discussion actually by trying to give you a sense on the kind of income tax relief that the Finance Minister has given to you. So if you're a taxpayer, expect that you will save anything between 5,000 rupees to 36,000 rupees per annum, depending on what your salary level is and whether or not you avail some of those exemptions. For instance, saving in ATC as well as the home loan exemptions that have also been hiked. We'll take you through some of those savings. We're going to talk more about what these taxes mean. But first, to look at some of the top highlights of the budget. What are some of the key highlights of the budget? What are some of the things that can impact you? Let's take you through that. What are those top? So there's been an income tax relief. Some say it's only marginal. Others believe that's the best that he could have done. So the income tax exemption limits have been raised. We'll get you more on how the savings are going to really stack up for you depending on your salary level. What's costlier? What's cheaper? Well, cigarettes are costlier. TVs, mobiles and computers would be cheaper. Again, more details on other items that will be costlier and cheaper coming up in just a bit. A lot of boost to infrastructure, more better highways, 38,000 crore allocation that has been given to infrastructure. FDI, opening up of defense and insurance. Those are some of the other key takeaways. Education focus, 5 IIMs, 5 IITs, healthcare focus with 4 new aims and a promise of setting up an aims in every state. So those are some of the key takeaways. And of course, women's safety, 200 crores allocated, but that has already become very controversial. We'll tell you why in just a moment. Before I start inviting questions from the guests, let me actually get a reaction from our panelists here as to how they describe the budget. We've been bringing you a range of reactions from industry experts, but now just to break it down, we've digested the fine print. We know what this budget is all about. In one line, if you could describe what the Modi government's first budget has really meant. Mr. Mehra.
I think they have tried to create a facilitative environment to boost growth, boost manufacturing, and try to sort out the issues and bottlenecks that had come along.
If there's one word you had to describe this budget.
Growth-oriented.
Growth-oriented.
Well, you know, the budget had to do 3 jobs. 1, it had to revive growth. 2, it had to control inflation. And 3, it had to fix the public finances. Well, I would give for reviving growth a B to B+, for controlling inflation a C, and for public finances an A-.
A-, okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk in detail about all of those, but interesting analysis.
But I think that he missed a great opportunity.
Okay.
Because expectations were high. They came in with a great majority. We had bought into the exciting rhetoric of Narendra Modi. Now, he had a chance to translate that rhetoric into a roadmap, into a specific plan for the next 5 years. And I don't buy this business that he had only 40 days.
Okay.
He was the head of the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha for the last 5 years. What was he doing?
He knows
Sleeping?
Yeah. Okay. So in one line, a missed opportunity?
Yeah, I would say a missed opportunity.
Growth-oriented, a missed opportunity. Mr. Bhutani.
I think it's a pragmatic budget given all the circumstances surrounding the economy, meeting competing ends meet. You have issues on agriculture, you have issues on employment, you have issues on businesses which are stifling, very limited entrepreneurial facilities available for businesses. So I think he had to make all ends meet, and then he was inheriting something which was a huge fiscal gap. So he's got challenges insofar as tax collections are concerned, and he has got to continue with all the social programs, though the labels are sounding a little different.
So one line.
I think it's a pragmatic budget.
Okay, growth-oriented, missed opportunity, pragmatic. We've also got two very special guests joining in from Mumbai. Sajid Chinoy, India economist of JP Morgan, and Vivek Dahejia, who's a very well-known author of the book Indianomics. Sajid, to you first. One line to describe Arun Jaitley's budget.
I think it was serious, it was sober, it was responsible. If you ask me for one line, I think it's a welcome and needed continuity of policy orthodoxy, that we can talk about all the other aspirations. His primary goal here was to ensure the fiscal deficit goes down in a credible manner, and over time that contributes to bringing inflation pressures down, and I think on that limited but important front he succeeded.
You're calling it a serious budget, is that right? Sajid, is that the one word to describe it?
It's serious, it's sober, and it's serious and sober, I would say.
Okay, interesting adjectives we're getting for the budget, serious and sober. Vivek, over to you now.
Well, I mean, a lot of my favorite words have been used, but certainly pragmatic, serious, sober, and realistic. I mean, I think those who had expected a big bang sort of reform budget, we're already part of the way through a fiscal year. I think probably we're dreaming. This is the best that Mr. Jaitley could do, given the very tiny amount of fiscal space he had. But I'll just point to a couple of things. If you look beneath the thickets, sort of you cut through the noise. He's pointing to the fact that there's going to be serious financial sector reform, and this could be potentially huge for India's growth prospects going forward. Monetary policy reform, something that most people missed. Totally, it was one line in the budget.
Okay.
But having a rationalized monetary policy, I think, could be potentially very important. And these are just two things that I picked up on that are very bright signals for me.
We'll talk in detail about that, Vivek, but let me go straight across to the audience, because remember, there are people out there who are trying to find answers. This is a government that has come on the hope of improving the overall living standards, of ensuring that the economy picks up, of ensuring that jobs are created, prices are brought under control. So the expectations are huge. And as somebody described, that a budget was essentially seen as a trailer of the kind of movie we're going to witness over the next five days. So is the trailer impressive enough or not? Let's see what the people of India are saying. We've got plenty of hands out there and questions coming in. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
My question is that we see a lot of funds being allocated for highway projects, but in the past also we have many highway projects which are pending completion. So what exactly has been done on that? I mean, you do have a lot of funds coming in, but the utilization of the fund, proper utilization.
Mr. Das.
Well, during the NDA regime, actually you had a very impressive record of highway development, and the Golden Quadrilateral was completed by the UPA also in 2006, and it had a big impact. There was a study done by the World Bank which showed that within 10 kilometers of the highways that were built, you had huge job creation in those highways. So the 38,000 crores that have been allocated is impressive, is the right step, and given that the core competence of Modi is implementation, we should expect this to be spent even better.
Okay, so that's a positive. I think there's a question here on taxes. Go ahead, this lady here.
So my question is that right now, whatever tax relief that has been given to people, don't you think it is very less? I mean, it should be there should be more tax relief to people.
Okay, tax.
The limit should be exceeded.
Limit should have been higher. In fact, if we could just pull up our graphic quickly of the kind of savings people are going to see, what has happened on taxes, what has happened on income taxes. Remember, so far the exemption limit was 2 lakh rupees per annum, which means if you earned up to 2 lakh rupees per annum, you were paying no tax. This has been hiked by 50,000 rupees. So now if you earn 2.5 lakh rupees per annum, you pay no tax. But what are the savings? He's also hiked the overall exemption under Section 80C, which essentially means that the amount you can save has now been increased from 1 lakh rupees to 1.5 lakh rupees. Also, the home loan exemption has also increased from 1.5 lakh rupees to 2 lakh rupees. Overall savings done by BMR advisors, and that there you've got the details on your screen. 5 lakh rupees. If you earn, you could save as much as 15,000 rupees per annum. If you earn up to 10 lakh rupees, your savings could be 25,000 rupees an annum. And if you earn 20 lakh rupees or more, you save 36,000 rupees. Mr. Bhutani, if I could bring you in on this point, there are many like this girl here who believe that he could have given more, but there's never any end. And how is he going to get the revenues?
By giving away these by making these changes, he's given away 22,000 crores.
Okay.
There is very limited room that he had for maneuvering insofar as tax collection is concerned. We shouldn't view this in an isolated manner. You should look at it as an exemption limit going up by 150,000, and the breakup is 50,000 on slabs, 50,000 on savings, and you should presume that people at that level would save, and 50,000 on housing deduction. So that's also presumption that people at that level would have a housing loan. So it's 150,000 rupees. That's one part. The second aspect is there is a lot of rejigging on the excise duty front. So products which are low cost products, there is excise duty relief as well. The entire underlying philosophy behind this changes is put more money in the pockets of the common man or the younger people and spend more, because the consumption taxes are also going down. That's the overall guiding philosophy.
Okay, so Mr. Bhutani, they're making it clear, what you've got is quite a lot. The government is foregoing 22,000 crore rupees to ensure that you have more disposable income. And it's not just that 50,000 relief that's come directly by way of that income tax exemption, which is being hiked, which means anybody earning up over 2.5 lakh rupees an annum saves about 5,000 rupees. But if you add the 50,000 on the Section 80C, if you add the 50,000 on home loans, it's actually 1,50,000 rupees that you're talking about. So it's not bad. I mean, it's the best he could have done, really.
I think absolutely, and I think this also signals, going forward, taking the limit to even further levels, 300,000, which is what was the original recommendation in the 2009 direct taxes.
You see that happening eventually once he's got his math worked out.
He's very clear that his heart is in this area.
Right.
He wants to do it. For senior citizens, he's given
even more.
3 lakh rupees.
He's given 3 lakh rupees. Yes, we would like to mention that if you're a senior citizen, you pay no tax if you earn up to 3 lakh rupees per annum.
So your base limit has increased by 75% actually.
Exactly.
Your tax exemption increased by 75%.
So it is a substantial relief. It's the best he could have done given the state of the economy. But now let's go across the country, because we've got people standing by with their questions to ask our experts. Monideepa Banerjee joining us from Kolkata, Alok Pandey joining us from Bihar, and Siddharth Ranjan Das joining us from Bhopal. Monideepa, to you first. You've got a bunch of people out there waiting to ask questions. Go ahead.
That's right, Shweta. I am with the Millennium Mams, a whole lot of housewives who also, study the stock market and the Indian economy. But they have said that the first question must go to Mr. Vishnu Dhanuka, who is the founder, director and mentor of this amazing group of women. Mr. Dhanuka, your question.
My question is to Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Sir, congratulations for this dream budget. But only a little bit doubt about the implementation part, if you can explain that.
Okay, Mr. Prasad will be joining us hopefully in just a bit, but if I could take that question again to Mr. Gurcharan Das and to Sajid, because implementation, as you're saying, is Narendra Modi's key.
In a way, I think this is a UPA 3 budget, which is not saying anything bad, frankly, because the UPA budgets itself were actually quite sound. The problem was implementation. Now the core competence of Modi is implementation.
Sajid, would you agree with that? Sajid, if I could take that to you, would you agree with that even though it's being seen as a UPA 3 budget in many ways, just the fact that Mr. Modi is known for his implementation skills brings that much needed hope?
I completely agree, and I think there are two kinds of implementation. One is to try and push implementation of the budget itself. Far too often what you saw in the previous budgets was you budgeted tax collections too aggressively, and ultimately what happened is later in the year, to meet your fiscal ends meet, you cut down at the more productive planned expenditures. I'm hoping that that does not happen again this year. But remember, this is ultimately only a statement of account. This is written by the Ministry of Finance. Much of what we describe to be implementation, bottlenecks, land, labor, coal, environment clearances, fall under the purview of other ministries. So I think people have to be patient. Reform is not an event, it's a process. So I think those kinds of bottlenecks will be alleviated, I think, slowly and systematically over time. For now, it's important that the budget math be implemented and taken to its logical conclusion.
All right, I'm going to go across to Alok Pandey now for his set of questions. Monideepa, stay with us because we are going to take the next set of questions. Alok, it's over to you.
Well, thank you, Shweta. I'll go across quickly to these two gentlemen who have a comment and a question also. मनोज जी, आप जल्दी से संक्षेप में बताइए एक अच्छी चीज इस बजट में और एक जो आपको उतनी अच्छी नहीं लगी।
सबसे अच्छी चीज जो टैक्स में राहत दी गई है सीनियर सिटीजन्स को या आम आदमी को भी, तो ये अच्छी चीज है, थोड़ा वहाँ रिलीफ है। लेकिन बजट में इस मजबूत सरकार से, इस मजबूत बहुमत वाली सरकार से जो हमें उम्मीद थी कि वे कुछ कड़े निर्णय लेंगे, कुछ अच्छे निर्णय लेंगे, इन्होंने धोखा किया है, विश्वासघात किया है देश के साथ। इसमें विदेशी कंपनियों को बढ़ावा देने की बू आ रही है, कहीं ना कहीं हम फिर से गुलामी में घिर जाएंगे।
जी, आप ये भी कह रहे थे मनरेगा में ज्यादा एलोकेशन इंक्रीज ने किया, वो भी
बिल्कुल 33,000 करोड़ से इन्होंने 34,000 करोड़ पे लाया, तो 1,000 क्या उनके मुंह में जीरा का फोरन की तरह है, उससे कुछ विकास।
दादा, आपका नाम क्या है?
मेरा नाम साफिर चौधरी है।
यू ऑल्सो हैड ए क्वेश्चन, बताइए।
मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि क्या यह सरकार जो है बैंकों को क्या प्राइवेटाइजेशन की ओर भेज रही है? कितने संघर्ष के बाद ये राष्ट्रीयकृत हुआ था। ये इन्होंने कहा है कि 60% तक के शेयर को बैंक जो है बेच सकता है, तो 60% शेयर बेचने का मतलब हुआ फुल्ली प्राइवेटाइजेशन हो जाना, जो बिल्कुल गलत ही और अनुचित है।
Alok, we're going to clarify there. Perhaps that's not exactly what Arun Jaitley has said. He's not talked about a sell-off of 60%. He's in fact said that the control of PSU banks will stay with the government, which means 51% will stay with the government. But yes, talking about greater autonomy being given to PSU banks. Mr. Mehra, quick word from you on that.
Yeah, and he's also said that he would sell the shares to the large retail public.
Right.
So it will not be concentrated with some large houses or anything. It will be sold widespread. And therefore, what you are owning indirectly today, you will own directly tomorrow.
Vivek Dahejia, quick word from you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that again is one of these things hidden in the budget that potentially is hugely important, because it'll give people, retail investors, a stake in these public sector enterprises, and it's a way of bringing, if you like, disinvestment, divestment into the public sphere. And people, once they realize, look, now we own parts of these banks, now it's not going to be sort of, off the table to actually disinvest and even divest from some major PSUs. I think again, potentially hugely important if it's used properly by the government.
And it could give accountability. As you lower the stake of the government. In fact, I think the gentleman really should, I'd like to answer his question.
Sure.
I wish he had said we drop our stake to 49% for the government.
Right.
Because that would really bring accountability.
But then concerns there, the minute the government loses control, you don't necessarily want to do it with your financial sector, which is really seen as the bedrock. In times of a crisis, everybody said the foundations were strong, the control was with the government, and that's what helped.
But the best economies are the ones where government does not control.
Okay.
You see, there are serious constraints on government. Their ability to act as a commercial house becomes seriously impeded if it is under the purview of
Let me go back to Kolkata because a lot of
CAG
people standing by there with questions. Monideepa, over to you. Quick questions from your guests.
That's right, Anuradha. Here is your opportunity to ask a question.
There is a huge push for infrastructure in this budget, but where is the funding coming from?
That's a short question, Shweta.
Infrastructure. Sajid, would you like to address that question on infrastructure?
If there was one disappointment for me today, it was that the economic rebalancing that I thought the budget might push more aggressively did not happen. Now, I understand with the monsoon being deficient, it was politically hard to rationalize subsidies even more. But I think the person who asked the question has it exactly right. We've got all these grand dreams to build infrastructure, but the fact of the matter is that most private sector infrastructure firms balance sheets are under tremendous stress. We just spoke about public sector banks, non-performing assets and restructured loans are pretty much at record levels. So where is that money going to come from? And unfortunately, given the fiscal constraints, what you saw today was just 25,000 crore more in terms of planned capital investment compared to last year.
Right.
Clearly not enough. If you look at capital investment in the budget, it's 1% of GDP. Today it used to be 3%, in the mid-2000s. So I think the next logical reform, budgetary reform, has to be next year or the year after, the share of subsidies, which is close to 2% of GDP, has to come down to 1.5 or 1, and those resources have to go towards more public
and that's what many people
without which
believe that he's not done enough to.
CapEx will not happen.
He's not done enough to say how he intends to bring subsidies down. Quick word from Mr. Mehra.
Yeah. In favor of this, that example for the road sector, which suffered from various problems, he's given a big funding, which he says the government will fund it, and there's a 100 lakh crores worth of fund being created for that sector. He said banks can borrow very long term to lend long term, and PLR ratios will not be put onto them.
You feel there's enough for the infrastructure space?
Well, I think there is a thought on it, and improving the investment climate by itself creates possibilities of funding.
I'll come to the guests because we've got lot of questions pouring in. We've also got questions on our site, ndtv.com. Plenty of questions online. Before I let Monideepa go, one last question there from the Kolkata guests. Monideepa.
Okay, Shirisha, your turn.
Yeah, Finance Minister has been very bold to announce a fiscal deficit targets not only for this year but for next year. My question is, are we seeing a robust disinvestment plan? And number two, is DTC and GST surely on its way for this year?
In fact, there's a gentleman, there's a student here who also has a question on fiscal deficit. Go ahead.
So my question is, as the lady has pointed out, it's a very bold step to come out with a fiscal deficit of 3.6%, but I don't see any austerity measures in the budget so as to that target can be achieved. It is more of a rhetoric statement that we see out of the budget.
Just to explain to our viewers, how can the government cut down on its fiscal deficit? It needs to cut expenditures and improve revenues. Is there room for him to do that? Go ahead.
Well, this is a very, very good question, and this is where the fact is that we were all looking for that roadmap. If he's going to achieve, even forget 3.6 for the next year, 4.1 for this year, how it's going to be achieved?